So, Bradley Babb, welcome back to this platform. I'm really happy and excited to have you back. The last time we chat, you drop a lot of knowledge, a lot of information, a lot of gems, and I'm really excited for this next conversation. To be quite honest, I've been looking forward to this all week because I know the last time we spoke, I know that the information that you have, I can't wait for the part two and part three so that we can get more information out there, and you can share your knowledge, and let's talk about your experiences down in New Mexico, and what your plans and what you're planning on doing. Welcome back, man.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm very excited because the way how things are moving, permaculture is one of the tools that we can use to help the communities around the world, quite honestly. And having the knowledge and the skills that I have, I see that the Caribbean is ripe territory for this ancient future, if you want to call it that. Because this information that I have is not new. It's just being revisited. And I happen to be one of the messengers that have this knowledge in my hands and in my book and in my box, my toolbox. So I'm really grateful. Like when I look around and I see what's going on in the world and all these different things going on, I'm really grateful that I have the perspective of being from Barbados and living in another country. Because despite all the things that I've gone through in Barbados, it's given me a really good basis to go off of, because now I have the perspective of there and here. And I feel like because of that, I see that because of that, it's easier for me to identify solutions to these problems that we see are arising on personal level, community level, and then national level, if you want to put it in those terms.
What are some of those things that you're seeing and witnessing, that are happening, that you say we can say cause problems, that could be problematic? What are some of those things that you were talking about?
Well, one of the I don't want to say simple ones. One of the ones that is very that it's been right there in our face and we tend to not see it. We don't realize the correlation between development, mismanaged development, deforestation, and flooding. We don't make the connection between those three things. And take for instance a place like Barbados that has that we get a lot of rain. There still seems to be a water shortage because in that society there hasn't been the sense of water storage for future use. And we can store it in numerous ways. We don't have to just store it in the obvious, which is in a pond or where we add fish and water life and plants to help mitigate potential mosquitoes and that whole thing. Because once I know that when I present water storage to people in the Caribbean, the first thing they're going to say to me is, "What about mosquitoes? You're just going to be breeding mosquitoes." So there's ways around that. There's closed storage, cisterns that can be purchased or built where it's sealed, and there's a lid, like a manhole lid that you can take off and stuff like that. And then the other way I see it is in trees, in reforestation, because we don't think a lot of times in terms that when we plant trees, that trees are actually storing water. We just think of trees of pulling water out the ground, but we don't think of them as actually storing the water that's in the ground. So those are two ways. And a lot going in correlation to the trees, reforestation. So taking certain tracts of land, like take for instance some of these sugarcane fields that is just grass right now that nobody's doing anything with, and going in and replanting all the native plants, herbs, fruit trees, wood, whatever for fire for making furniture. And we go in and we replant some of these huge tracts of land with native forests. And I'm telling you, within 5 years, the water table would rise again, and we would see the climate starting to react a little different as far as when summer comes and we got these really, like, take for instance around Kadooment time, when that's like the blasting time of the year, we would see that the temperature would start to shift, because we don't realize that, like when we were small we used to go down to I can't remember the name of that place.
Oh, which place is that?
We would ride our bike south of, kind of, it's south of west of Black Rock. It's where basically where they
Oh,
hold Pulver.
like Pile of Beer.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Okay.
And what we've done, and we've done it all across the world. So I'm not just saying, oh, Barrios is, it's them. It's just, we have filled in the swamps and built on top of the waterways. And these things are the actual air conditioners of the earth. There's this place in Africa where the water flows from the, I think it's called the Wagizi wet, it's the Wagizi wetlands, but it flows from the highlands in Africa. And they say in that wetlands, the water comes from the highlands and fill 18 meters. 18 meters is, a meter is like 3 feet. That's a
Right.
lot of water.
Yes.
And if that doesn't happen, the whole global climate is going to shift, in a sense that that's probably why we're seeing things going to the extreme, because the desert, the Sahara, and certain places that we see as desert, we think, oh yeah, that's just a desert, but we don't realize that man has contributed to that. And I'm not talking about global warming, I'm just talking about man's behavior has accelerated some of these things. Because for me, what I was taught is that in global warming, every 1,000 years, the earth heats up and then it cools down. And we go through this cycle where it's like heating up and cooling down. And this has gone on forever, because when they pull the ice cores out 3, 4 miles from down in the ice, that's what they found out, that there were these periods where it heated up and cooled down. So I see that in Barbados, there's huge potential for water storage and not ever to have water shortage.
Yeah, I agree.
I see that that is a, what do you want to call it, like a trades, a trade avenue or a skill set avenue that can really benefit the whole society, because it could happen on a national level, it could happen on a community level, and then it could happen on an individual level, because like places like Mexico and Costa Rica and, excuse me, different places like that, this is what's going on. So everybody has their cisterns, that water is either being catch off the roof or it's coming from municipal or community catchment cistern, and then the water is pumped to each of the houses, like how we get the water from the water company. So it can be done that way, or where people have their own catchment set up. And because water is so abundant in the Caribbean, we don't think about it in that way. Yet when I've gone there, I felt like, man, this is dry. Like they're just like cutting all the trees down. What is going on over here? Like, and so we have to get forward to, replanting trees. And people, there's a disconnect, because people don't really realize that the trees is the thing that's going to pull the moisture back to the landscape.
Yeah, I think I think what you're saying is very interesting, and I often wonder about this because I remember like having some ideas.
Where we'd go get fish from down by
You know, and talking to some people in Barbados, and one person in particular, and he was telling me, he was like, "Yo, why don't you take those same ideas and use it where you are? Because it might be easier for you to get it done there, because in Barbados, it's a little bit, even though it sounds like the place that we naturally would want to help or give back to, it might be very tough to sell these ideas to some people there. Have you heard similar things, or do you find that it's a lot easier for you to narrate those same ideas to the people in Barbados?
It's both, because there's the yin and yang of every situation. You can always have the people who are like totally gun ho and really inspired, and then you'll have the naysayers. So this is something I was talking to Ryan about. So what we do, instead of looking out to the man or some organization, we create a group of us, and we use, say, your family's house or my family's house or somebody that's neutral's house as an example, and we install water catchment there, and then we document all of it as time goes on, and then have that as the flagship example for what's happening. And I know that there's permaculturists in Barbados doing work already. There's a gentleman from Trinidad, and then he's connected to a gentleman from here in Santa Fe, and they got connections of things going on in Africa too. So it's happening, just it hasn't been broadcast in this way, like so many things. The native people seems to get it last when everybody else is doing it for 5 and 10 years, then we hear about it.
Right.
So I see that it's up to us to collaborate and do it ourselves, even if it's just a small example.
Well, I think what you're doing and what you're saying right now, you're on the right track, because the more one thing I've learned over the years is you got to keep preaching. You got to keep preaching. Eventually, someone will buy into what you're saying. Someone will understand. You'll get one or two people who pick up on it. But but if we don't give this information, we don't pass it on, we don't share, nobody knows, nobody cares. For example, what you're saying is really awesome. The only issue I would think with getting messages like that over to the public is that people are so comfortable with the spoon fed,
Right.
right?
Right.
How do we break away from the spoon fed?
So remember, we are the curse breakers, if you want to put it in those terms. So that's why I know we have to set the example, and in the sense of creating some type of infrastructure that people can see, whether they go by it or it's something for them to go visit, whatever. We create a scenario where there's something they're working, physically working, and then I see that they will catch on like that, because we're very visual. Men especially, yet women too. Very visual. We want to see it. We don't want to hear about it. We want to see it working right there in front of us.
So we want to see it working first before we buy into this.
Well, we latch on, exactly.
And
So
then we want
then,
to see other people buy into it, and then all of a
right,
sudden, then here you
right.
go.
Oh, let's see if they're gonna get scammed for.
Everybody getting scammed now, right? If nobody picks up the phone. Do you know that? Like, I don't even pick up my phone. Like, you gotta text me
Yeah,
first.
it's scam central everywhere right now.
It's
So
crazy.
it is. I can't tell you the nonsense that I see on the phone. I'm just like, wow, these people don't got nothing better to do. So it means figuring out how to get a piece of land, either We tell Isaac, like, okay, Isaac, here we go. This is what we're doing. We want to use the land for, give us 2 years. This little piece, this little corner, and we go in and we apply, whether it's swales, ponds, water catchment, whatever. Because to create an example, we don't necessarily have to build some big building. We could build two outbuildings where it's like portals where you go underneath them and hide out from the rain. But they got tin on the roof and they're catching water. And then that water is in such of a big collection